There's a place called Eddie's World in the middle of the Mojave. It's like a rest stop that's an entire town of candy. It's like Willy Wonka in the desert.
I think Jill and I saw signs for this when we were going through Utah. No, you know what I'm thinking of? I'm thinking of this massive rest stop just outside of Moab that is complete. It only sells 8,000 different kinds of beef jerky and alien invasion and abduction paraphernalia.
Classic. There are some of those rest stops across America. There's Little America, Wyoming, which is completely insane. South of the border in South Carolina.
That's the one of my childhood, driving to my grandparents' house. Yeah.
That one's completely mental. America does a rest stop as a sort of carnival horror show.
It says something about how stupid you can be as a kid when I first saw those signs when I was 9, almost 10, and I thought, Mom, if you don't stop here, I am going to kill myself. This has to be paradise on earth. And then you don't stop, you feel annoyed, and then a couple of years go by, and finally she's like, all right, we've driven by it enough over the years, let's just stop. And then you get there, and you're like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah, at south of the border, they had a coffee cup that was half a coffee cup.
Yeah, I've seen
that. And then it was the government took the other 50% of my coffee.
I've seen those. Yeah.
And I was like, oh boy. Yeah. America.
But yeah,
That's
no,
I
loved this gas station for being able to buy like ostrich jerky and also a little keychain of a guy who maybe wants to give you an anal probe.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Hello and welcome to Expected Own Goals. Orlando is still perfect edition. I'm your host, Eric Morgan.
I'm Evan Davis. Let's start the whip around in reverse, since our featured game is Kansas City, Washington, because we put it to a vote, and that is what an overwhelming plurality of you said. I think we got 52% of the vote went to that game.
I think the people chose well.
It's actually... I thought to myself, would it be weird to talk about KC 2 weeks in a row? But I actually think that this particular Kansas City performance is important to highlight and remind ourselves that, no, this team is not actually that bad.
No, not bad at all. And I think I think we can talk a lot about sort of in-game adjustments and tactical adjustments. The value of home field. There's just a lot to talk about with this Kansas City game.
So let's take it in reverse chronological order, though. So let's start with Angel City, Portland, which you and I were at on Monday night.
A game that I would describe as played between definitely not two of the best teams in the
league. Yeah, I mean, I predicted in the press box that this could be a 3-3 game. And I wasn't that far away.
Yeah, in a weekend of 2-2s in world soccer, this was also a 2-2.
This was the 2-2iest.
This was the 2-2iest of 2-2s. Mackenzie Arnold, who has been a relative bright spot in an otherwise bleak Portland Center performances, finally regressed and gave away a leveling goal to Claire Emsley's body that she threw at the ball.
Full body goal.
Kelly Hubley got spun around by Alyssa Thompson for Angel City's opener. Kelly Hubley created the go-ahead goal for Olivia Moultrie. It was a game that had lots of things. Morgan Weaver scored. Morgan Weaver, who looks very back, but also might have been very offside, scored.
Yeah. Let's talk about the officiating for a second, because it was at the center of two goals, both Portland goals, and also a potential penalty non-call when Mackenzie Arnold leveled Messiah Bright in second half stoppage time. What did you make of the officiating? We watched this game. We watched the replay in the press box of Weaver's run, and the most perpendicular camera angle we had sure made it look like she was half a body length offside. And it certainly looked offside in live time, but even after a goal check, they said onside, play on.
Yeah, having watched that from the worst possible angle to assess offside, and I know that you in the press box don't have a much better look at it, but it sure felt like Weaver was offside. I think she, right at the moment Marie Mueller plays the ball, delays her run just enough.
It must be that.
To get herself onside.
And again, the most perpendicular camera angle we had was still not straight down the barrel of the line that would indicate Sarah Gordon's and Weaver's vertical distance relative to each other. So, yeah, I guess they must have just seen something that told them this is not clear and obvious.
Well, also, the linesman didn't call it. The official, the head ref didn't call it. So it really does need to be clear and obvious for there to be an overturn.
Yeah.
And having rewatched the game today, there's just no angle.
It would be nice if FIFA made Hawkeye semi-automated offside technology affordable for a league like the NWSL to implement in all 14 stadiums. That would be nice.
You probably could get Hawkeye in BMO or BMO. You could, because LAFC use it. It's used occasionally for international friendlies. Like there's reason enough there.
But like, how do you get it in Lynn Family Stadium? How do you get it inside?
Yeah, or Cary, North Carolina.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, like single sort of less prominently internationally used stadiums. But I feel like this is a problem that will be sorted sooner rather than later.
I think that's probably true.
That said, Morgan Weaver,
yeah, I mean,
got a goal.
It's awesome. It was like a 0.75 XG chance. Morgan Weaver is so back. It's great. It's delightful.
She did a lovely Bella Bixby baby celebration.
Yes, that was cute. Going to move on to the Moultrie goal. Do you think the ref should have whistled the play dead after Alyssa Thompson went down with an injury?
No.
It seemed like it was not a concussion protocol issue.
Yeah, and really that's the only time the referee is supposed to intervene like that. So while it was unclear why Thompson had gone on, and I didn't see a ton of like Angel City players trying to like flag and stop the play.
A couple did on the right flank where the play was occurring. But yeah, sure. It wasn't like it was the whole unit.
That's part of the game. You just can't get upset at a play on. I mean, you can, but every team does what Portland has done in that situation.
Yeah.
It doesn't always result in a goal, but the number of times a player goes down and the opposing team plays on far exceed the number of times somebody just plays the ball out.
This is not to mention the fact that, okay, you might be able to argue that if Thompson hadn't been injured in that moment, maybe she would have tracked back and prevented the counter from fully unfolding. But it should also be noted that where Moultrie finds herself in acres of space after the entire Angel City backline is caught ball watching is not on the side of the pitch where Thompson was. So
no, I mean, the build-up plays on the side of the pitch where Thompson was. So, like, if you want to feel aggrieved, that's where you feel aggrieved,
right,
not about Moultrie's collect and finish.
Yeah.
But also, like, if you want to feel aggrieved as an Angel City supporter, this is another time that Angel City has taken an early lead and really struggled to maintain.
I believe I saw that it's 16 points dropped from winning positions.
Yeah, that's where you get angry. That's where you have to, as an Angel City supporter, that's where you really have to start asking for like changes in the front office, changes in coaching. This Angel City season has been a missed opportunity, an implosion of sorts. The bill finally coming due. It's been just a series of mistakes and tragedies that have led you to a point where I honestly think last night was not maybe the nail in the coffin for Angel City season, but close.
And it should be pointed out that if you go to American Soccer Analysis and you go to their leaderboard app, you go to G+ in the teams section, you can actually filter how teams perform relative to scoreline. So I just very quickly punched in, show me, G+ differential per 96 minutes when you have a winning score in place. Angel City's G+ differential when they are up by one or more goals is -1, and that's 13th place. The only team worse than them is Utah. And what I am going to use that to color our final point about this game, which we're going a little long on, is the final refereeing question, which is Mackenzie Arnold bodying Messiah Bright on a loose aerial that ends up going out of bounds. Is that a penalty? Is that not a penalty? I rewatched it the ball, neither player is near the ball, and Arnold almost looks like she slows up before she then launches forward, which would suggest reckless intent. But neither player is going to be able to reach the ball, and we can't quite tell for sure from the camera angle, but the ball might already be out of bounds before any contact is made, or before Arnold even jumps. So would it matter either way? What were your thoughts about that?
I didn't see a penalty there. It didn't register. Again, I had a terrible sightline at it, but even on replay, I just don't feel like the refs got that wrong per se.
I think it comes down to the ball being out of bounds when the contact.
Yeah, that's
is made.
it.
Yeah,
that's right. But again, it's like, was the stadium upset? Yeah.
Not just the stadium, because in the post-match press conference, Becky Tweed, and this is now becoming a narrative because this has happened 2 weeks in a row, and it's actually happened several times this season. They are really developing a persecution complex around the officiating, and they believe that they are not getting calls that they should be getting, and it's swinging results. Well, and you got to create a siege mentality for your team. You can't make it. Yeah, you can't make them start to think that it's their fault. You have to think that they have to create an us against the world point of view if they're going to keep fighting in these last 5 games of the season. But that is the narrative that the team and Tweed certainly want to put out in the world, is that this team is being screwed over by sloppy officiating.
I think any fair and objective view of that says even if some of that's true, that's not the reason you're not in the playoffs right now.
Which is, again, why I bring up what your G+ differential is when you are up at least 1 goal. That actually has nothing to do with the calls you are or are not getting. You just play badly when you have a lead.
Angel City, that playoff line right now is looking like 30.5 points, 31 points, above him or above or below. So Angel City they have
a 10% chance of making the playoffs according to our Patreon subscriber Trevor Larner's updated ELO model. And it's hard to see how they close that gap, because Bay FC, Chicago, and even Louisville now are really codifying their spots as in the hunt for those final 2 playoff spots.
I don't have a great feeling about their stretch run. And it's not the toughest set of opponents, but it's a set of opponents they have not demonstrated that they can beat. I don't think even a diminished spirit team coming in this Friday gives Angel City a particularly good chance. They are on the road for all but one of their remaining games after that spirit game. They needed 3 points. This was a 6-pointer, given Portland's position in the league. Portland can walk away with a draw and feel relatively okay about it. The absence of Sophia Smith is concerning, but the Thorns are in a much better position, and Angel City feel on the cusp of elimination.
Ironically, the Thorns dropped to 7th in the table, but their playoff odds are still over 90%, according to Trevor's ELO model. So, yeah, Thorns are bad, but they don't seem to be bad enough to drop out of the playoff picture. Not
to compare them to Chicago, but the points on the board start to matter. And that's where the Thorns are.
Gotham, Utah.
I don't have a ton to say about this game.
No, it's the most boring game of the weekend.
I actually don't think this is the most boring game of the weekend, but we'll get there.
Oh, interesting.
It's close.
Okay.
No, because Gotham score in the 2nd minute on a very onside assist from Lynn Williams to a clinical finish from Yasmin Ryan, and then do what they've kind of done all season, which is shut up shop and sort of frustratingly create little, but never really leave second gear and never really have a problem.
They looked vulnerable a couple of times.
Yeah, but vulnerable-ish as opposed to vulnerable.
Exactly.
And never losing the game.
Totally.
And, I continue to feel like Gotham, who have amassed a 13-4-4 record and 43 points and clinched a playoff spot without ever fully convincing. They just keep kind of clicking on being consistently on the level of or better than their opposition, regardless of who that opposition is.
Yeah, and again, they conceded 0.06 XG per shot to Utah.
Yeah.
So they
great.
They don't have to feel stressed or sweating anything about that result.
By the way, according to FBref, Gotham haven't lost an XG battle since before the Olympics.
Yeah, it's great. It's what you want.
I mean, it's just what it is.
This is a time of the year where a lot of good teams have been tested. Looking at you, Kansas City. Looking at you, Washington, as a matter of fact. And Gotham hasn't really had to suffer any consequences. But let's talk about Houston-Seattle. Is this the most boring game of the weekend?
That was the one. That was the one.
Okay.
I have. These are now Seattle, who looks so promising. I also think is probably out of the playoffs at this point.
Yeah, again, the ELO model suggests 9% playoff odds at this moment. I don't think there's really any chance to come back from that.
That's right around where I would have pegged it. If you're Seattle and you were chasing a playoff spot, what you really couldn't do is drop a game to the Houston Dash.
Yeah. A game that you probably should have won.
Or at least gotten a point from.
Yeah.
I don't know about should have won, but definitely should have gotten a point from.
Yeah.
And a Yuki Nagasato finish is the difference in this game. Good for Houston to not completely implode down the stretch run, but this Dash team is a headache on a migraine and are going to need positives to build out into next season. The Fran Alonso situation continues to baffle.
Mm-hmm.
You think we're ever going to get an answer?
I don't know. No one's saying anything, and no one is able to extract any kind of information about it. So all we have left is frustrating speculation, which is probably irresponsible. So we just have to throw our hands up and see how it all resolves. 0.10 to 0.07 XG per shot split in Seattle's favor for that game. So Seattle probably can feel a bit hard done by, but they still didn't dazzle. Offensively, anyway.
If they didn't create enough before going down, they created probably 0.8 XG after going down. It's still against Houston. You'd like to see a team generate more.
That's the thing.
Jane Campbell continues to be a standout on a very bad team.
I mean, that's the thing that just troubles you. If you can only produce about, what, we're guessing 0.7, 0.8 XG in 35, 40 minutes of game time against the worst defense. It's like just ignore the shot quality, ignore what Jane Campbell is offering. Like, if that's all your offense can produce against that midfield and that back line, that's kind of tells you all you need to know about what is going to keep Seattle at home come November. Louisville, North Carolina. This got Louisville back in the playoff hunt.
Yeah, finally the breaks are going Louisville's way. A team that I think, even though we looked at the underlying numbers and thought this team was good, I don't know how much I ever really believed that they would get a playoff spot.
Yeah.
I think I wanted the numbers to reflect something better, but Louisville are putting together the results they need to put together down this stretch. This is two wins in a row. They've got 9 points from their last 5 fixtures. That's the kind of pace you need to be on to secure a final playoff spot. And they have a tough-ish schedule, especially if San Diego turns out to be the offensive juggernaut that they are on paper.
Mm-hmm.
But, they grab a win against Utah this weekend. They're on 28 points. They're almost there.
Yeah, I mean, their ELO projection playoff odds right now is 41%. Like, there's a lot of distance between them and Bay for eighth place in that regard, but 41% playoff odds with 5 games to go means you are in the hunt.
Very much so in the hunt.
And we wouldn't necessarily. I don't think we would have said that last week. I actually don't think we said that last week.
Look, this game begins with Ashley Sanchez putting Abby Erceg on skates and flopping her over and then laying off a perfect square pass to Brianna Pinto to open up scoring. And then Louisville just kind of stuck with it. Feli Rauch makes calamitous error to allow Emma Sears in behind and to
true no doubter
tie this game up. And then a true no doubter handball on a shot on target.
Yeah.
Like, nothing to complain about there. And Boats Balser just sails that one into the side netting.
Does what Boats Balser does.
It was a tidy penalty, and Louisville pull out a result in the final 15 minutes of a game, a time in games that they have not always been so confident.
Why?
Or competent.
Why did Sean Nahas keep Tyler Lucy on the bench? That seems really
Well, I think
dumb.
he felt like a draw probably was. I mean, what are you supposed to do in the courage position? You are not going to claim a home field game.
Yeah, sure. Do you really think that's
And-
what was in his mind? Was squad rotation?
No, of course not. Of course not. Of course not. But what I'm saying is like what North Carolina looks pretty locked in that 5 spot. The Red Stars are in 6 and are the chasing team. I think this is a fine result in the grand scheme of things for the Courage. Even though it's a mild implosion, I don't know if I think Tyler Lucy is the deciding factor in changing the outcome of this game.
I mean, but maybe not.
As we've gone all season, I think I don't rate Sean Nahas as a manager as highly as you do.
I don't think I rate him that highly either.
Yeah, I still think that what I've said is true. But what I suppose I don't necessarily think like that's the critical error in this game.
Yeah, maybe not.
And I'm not sure exactly what the critical error is. That said, North Carolina lost the XG battle in this one,
Yeah, I was
they deserve to lose.
Yeah, it was 0.11 to 0.08 on the XG per shot split there. But they did get Caroline back, so that might turn the tide.
Yeah, no, and frankly, in this game, if anything, North Carolina's like a little unlucky not to have tied this thing up when Malia Berkeley hits the crossbar right at the death. And that's tough.
Yeah, sure.
And that's just sometimes how it goes. Like, she overhits that ball and any less on that ball, and it's off the underside of the crossbar and in. Or just over Lund's hands and in. Right. And instead it just comes slamming off the post. And that's
the wiles of variance.
That's just variance, folks. All right, let's keep clicking.
Bay Orlando.
Oh, Bay.
Feel bad for them. They probably earned a result out of this.
They could have gotten another one of those rare draws for them out of this game. They took the game to Orlando, and I thought played them quite evenly.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what we saw at the end of this game was, a Dorian Bailey elite chance in the 79th minute, saved from about 9 yards out. And then 5 minutes later, Banda just bandas and heads home. She'd missed better chances in this game.
Yeah.
But she created, 7, 8, 9 shots?
Yeah, 9 shots. She took 9 shots. Her finishing value was like negative 0.4. Against almost one whole XG on her own.
Both of these teams played at a really high level. I thought Rachel Kundananji had another really great game in creation. I think that Bay showed a lot. This was a tough fixture for both teams.
With every passing week, I get more and more impressed with Bay FC.
Yeah, they are, despite the fact that this weekend they have fallen out of playoff spots, they are on form, very much a playoff team. We finally saw Carson Pickett.
I know.
And guess what? She plays that cross to Barbara Banda.
Sure does.
So maybe this is the beginning of a beautiful partnership, one that is only a handful of weeks too late. But
not that it matters to Orlando's final table position. But yeah, no, Bay's 6th place in the XG differential table. Like, I'm just totally gobsmacked that they are now a legit like playoff caliber team.
Oh yeah.
It's very, very cool.
And they lost a toss up here.
Yeah.
They lost a game where it just turns out they didn't have Barbara Banda and the other team did.
Right.
And that kind of is the difference here. That said, they look more solid defensively than a fair number of teams above them in the table.
Yeah.
And the offense hasn't really been in question. I think Bay is, at this point, a dark horse to really fuck some teams up. Look, Trevor's ELO model has the top 4 teams in this league all better than 80% likely to win their first playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
That said, if there were a team I would be most terrified to face up against in the playoffs right now of teams who are 6 through 9 or 10 in this league, It's probably Bay.
That's interesting. Your opinion, your choice for that kind of team, the like, I don't want to face this team in the first round of the playoffs team, that has changed a few times, and now it's Bay.
It's true, but also that's because Portland's fallen off.
Yeah,
that's because I've not really feared North Carolina. Louisville's never been a playoff certainty, but on form right now, I mean, we'll get to Chicago and San Diego as the last game we need to hit on this recap, but I'll say that Chicago isn't the team.
Yeah, Bay and Orlando could have been a preview for the first round, very possibly.
Yeah, and obviously you still shade Orlando in this one, but Bay's just playing better football.
Like, dig this, man. Like, since the end of June, Bay has the fourth best non-penalty XG allowed figure. They are just behind Gotham, KC, and Louisville.
Yeah, I know. I think if there's any mea culpa, it's probably owed to Albertine Montoya at some point if this keeps going.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to reevaluate at the end of the regular season.
I'm not ready to send it just yet, but hey, Bay's in a nice little stretch, and if I'm a Bay supporter, I'm not any more concerned. If I'm an Orlando supporter, I'm feeling great. We're still undefeated.
Yep. Yep. And no reason really to think that you will not be for the next 5 games.
No, I mean, are we looking at a perfect season? Maybe. Home field advantage through the playoffs just started looking a lot easier.
Yeah.
With our profiled game. But let's move on and let's get to one of the craziest. You went off on Twitter. One of the craziest games.
There was good reason. There was good reason to go off
in recent NWSL memory.
Yeah,
Chicago, San Diego.
Chicago,
Evan, go off.
Chicago 1, San Diego 0. Let's quickly turn the page to the XG. Chicago 1.3 XG. San Diego 3.55 XG.
That's unbelievable. It's unbelievable,
folks. No team in the history of the NWSL, or at least since 2016 when XG began being tracked in the league, has ever accrued 3.55 XG in a single game and not scored.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
Only 10 other teams have ever put up that amount of XG in the first place. The other 10 obviously did score in those games. Only one other team has ever put up that much XG on the road, and they won that game, incidentally. Only a few teams have ever put up that good of a single game XG differential and lost. I think there's only about 2 that fall into that category. Like, this is bananas.
And one of them happened earlier this year with North Carolina, Utah.
That is exactly right. No, this game was utterly bonkers. Like, how, and you could see every time San Diego missed a shot, the grabbing of the heads, the looking around, being like, how is this happening to us? How is this possible? It was wild.
This was the Book of Job levels of like cruelty from God to question the faith of a set of players.
Yeah.
Like,
it would be such a Chicago game if that 3.5 XG had been accrued on like 50 shots or something. So every single shot was like 0.04, but it wasn't that. I mean, they ended up averaging, I think, 0.13 XG per shot. So Chicago wasn't doing their usual thing defensively, but Chicago did do their usual thing offensively, because putting up 1.3 XG on 9 shots meant that those were some big chances that San Diego conceded, and it looked like it, especially in the first half.
In defense of Chicago's performance, and this is all I will say because I obviously believe Chicago should have lost this game handily. They scored early, on a great chance from Ludmila, and it's a great finish.
Yeah.
That is a textbook headed finish.
She rules. I like her more and more with each passing week.
Yeah, I'm a big Ludmila fan. She is creating a lot of offense and helping alleviate the burden on Mal Swanson, who herself had a huge chance on the counter in the 40th minute.
Yeah.
This game could have gone to halftime 2-0, and it wouldn't have been like the most unfortunate thing given the chances that were conceded by San Diego.
Probably 3-0, honestly, at halftime.
I mean, that would have required Ludmila scoring also on the only other shot they had in that first half. But 2-0 for sure was possible. That said, Chicago attempted to absorb defensively everything that San Diego had. And only by the definition of not conceding a goal, which, by the way, is the most important definition, and we agree on that, did they succeed.
Yeah.
Because San Diego had more high-quality chances kicked off the shin of one of their defenders.
Mm-hmm.
Or just sort of like cartoonishly missed.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't even a game where like Alyssa Nair goes like beast mode and like rolls back the years and reminds us why she was the greatest keeper in the world. No. She had a fine game.
Yeah.
But this isn't what happened. This is San Diego receiving a sort of XG cruelty comeuppance that I'm not sure they deserved.
Yeah.
They created so many good chances.
I think it really does come down to finishing because Alyssa Nair only faced about 0.4 post-shot XG the entire day. So she was never really troubled by the shots on target that she had to deal with, which I think she only had like 2 shots on target that she had to save.
I mean, it's bad.
It was hilarious. I do feel bad. It also indicates that when Chicago has to account for not one like dangerous player in and around the box on the ball, but like 2, maybe 3 once Shaw gets into the game. Like Delphine Cascarino is a terror, you know?
Yeah.
It does not augur well for like their bullshit, which then makes you wonder how successful they'll be in the playoffs.
We talk about big chances on this podcast from time to time, defining them as 0.15 XG or above.
Yeah.
How many do you think Chicago had in this game? Or Chicago conceded in this game? How many do you think San Diego had?
How many did San Diego have? I think it was like 5 or 6.
9.
Yeah, it's incredible.
9.
It's incredible.
9 times San Diego had a chance of greater than 0.15 XG or you know.
Yeah.
At least according to FBrF's model. ASA's model is going to be very close to that too, because a lot of these are no doubter chances.
I mean, the rebounder that Cascarino takes off of the Maya Jones shot,
which is the biggest.
Yeah,
that's a full 5 yards out, dead red.
Yeah.
0.5 XG,
just in a total mess of a scrum. She can't get a clean look at. Yeah.
So if there were ever a game that said, "San Diego, your season is over," this was it.
Yeah.
But in the cruelest and least deserved ways, at least as far as XG is concerned.
Yeah, Wave playoff odds down to 3%.
Yeah, at Chicago, against everything, this is like one of those years when like a baseball team with like a negative 100 run differential makes the playoffs.
Totally. No, it's exactly what's going on.
And these do happen.
Yeah.
It's exactly what's going on. Chicago, some of it is tactics, and I'm going to admit that Lauren Ball is at least demonstrating, and in small samples that are not as scientifically defensible as we would like, but Lauren Ball basically does work on some level, even if you're going to concede, because of their quality of chance creation.
Yeah.
When they get them.
I would be curious, and we can't know this until the season is over, but if, say, they make the playoffs and get bounced in the first round, or let's say by some devising, because they still do have a tough schedule, they miss the playoffs, would it then be appropriate to try and sit down and think, like, does Lauren Ball maybe only work in major tournaments when there's only at most 7 games where you have to deal with this rather than maybe 22 to 26 or whatever? Yeah.
Look,
it's worth thinking about.
Look, if Chicago
table it,
it's definitely worth thinking. Like we'll put a pin in Lauren Ball. I think it'll be really fun to do like a postseason diagnosis if Chicago does go and upset someone.
Yeah.
Or like does make a run. But at this point, ELO doesn't want them in the playoffs, but the points on the board are almost too good.
Don't try and pretend what you know is in Jeff Lynn's heart. You can't know that man's heart and soul.
No, you're right. That's right. That's right.
To go back to San Diego for a second, this is what's so funny.
It's a living thing. It's a living thing.
Dude, this sport is an absolute living thing. I mean, what is Delphine Cascarino if not a witchy woman?
No, this is.
Gotham definitely used to be Mr. Blue Sky, if you think about it from a certain point of view.
Oh my god.
So expected points, which takes the XG of each game and then simulates it thousands of times to see like the average result from the same kinds of shots and when those shots get taken in a game. We talked about this before, like the space between 5th and 11th on expected points is so tight that like to the point where like it's tenths of a point between certain teams. Because San Diego had such a blowout on XG, and because they were in that 5th to 11th kind of pile, that vaulted them all the way up to 5th place on expected points. You know, which is very, very funny. One result can swing things because that's how tight things are on performance quality. But sadly, it's just not going to be enough. There's not enough time to put up the points to get them into the postseason, and it's just it's just a little bit too little, too late with Cascarino showing up and performances starting to gel. But you know what? There's always next year.
Look, Landon Donovan, your offense is working. It just didn't produce a goal.
Yep.
San Diego, Delphine Cascarino, you look like a big hit.
Yep. And right now,
Chicago,
by the way, between 5th and 11th right now, after the weekend's games, less than 3 points separate. And it's between 6th and 11th, less than 2 points separate those teams.
Yep.
So
that said, if I'm a Chicago supporter, just enjoy this black magic that you are currently playing on everyone.
Yeah.
Because
that's another classic rock band. We can't get into that.
I know. We won't. but you have cast a spell and it is working.
All right.
All right, let's get on to the big one.
Time for the main event. And it did not disappoint, unlike the main event of last week.
I would argue that it disappointed if you were a Washington Spirit fan.
Sure, but we're not, so it didn't.
But we're not. We're neutrals. Wow. Kansas City.
If there ever was a game to be described as, man, did that team need that, it would be this one. To have a statement win, which they have not had since they lost to Orlando the first time in July, and also to do it against a team they might face either in the semifinal or the championship game. And to do it this convincingly is pretty impressive. 3-0 maybe flatters them a little bit, but
I think it does, yeah.
It's a convincing spread by XG, even more so by XG per shot, which is really reflective of the way that Kansas City likes to play. Like, this was the most Kansas City current game we have seen in a while. Like, this is just what they love to do. You want the ball? Take it. You want to try and play out of the back? Great. Temwa Chawinga is going to run over you. Like, that's Vlatko ball in 2024, and it worked. It really worked.
There was something that Mike Watt said on the air that I thought was really telling. And he was talking about all the ways in which the Spirit aren't necessarily the best team in any number of statistical categories. True. They're near the top in so many things. And he asked, apparently, Andy Sullivan, well, what are you guys best at? And her answer was adjusting. And I would have agreed with that statement until yesterday, or until this last match week.
Yeah.
Because in this game, they had no answer for what Kansas City was attempting.
Nope.
And if I'm Kansas City and I want to take a look at what really worked in this result, the 3 is great. It's the 0 that worked really well.
Yeah.
It's everything that they did defensively. And this is what 2 quality defenders in Alana Cook and Kayla Sharples and making a change in goal and adding Schulte and just giving them reps starts looking like.
Yeah. The reps you have to underline, highlight, put in bold, because that's the thing that I have said for a month now. Like, this might just be an issue of them getting comfortable with each other.
Yep.
They're fucking comfortable with each other now.
Yeah, absolutely. And this looked like vintage return to form earlier season Kansas City. Not coincidentally, Bia comes on and plays a big part in sort of slamming the door on that. Kansas City is getting healthier. They have now made solid defensive adjustments and have the reps under them. And they just took one of the best teams in the league behind the woodshed and beat the daylights out of them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really, It's really something. Like, they have so many cards that they love to play, whether it's using that rest defense structure to make sure you can't punch through them, and therefore you want the ball, go have the ball. The field tilt, which is, again, share of completed passes in each respective attacking third, was 69-31 in Washington's favor. Washington was living in Kansas City's attacking third. You look at the field control map, and it's just like this very tiny magenta bubble in the Kansas City box, just surrounded, like engulfed by every touch that Washington was making. And they don't give a shit. And then those moments where they decide that they want to trigger the counter press and get things going quickly, that's when you get the Chawinga goal. And that's when you get a couple other Chawinga chances, because I want to pull this up. I saw this the other day and was just like a little bit dazzled by it, because Chawinga, quick side note while I'm doing this, who's the MVP this year in your opinion? Right now. It doesn't matter like who we think necessarily should be, or
Temwa Chawinga.
Or okay.
Temwa Chawinga.
It's still very
not that close.
I think it's still close.
I mean, Barbara Banda, but she just didn't play a handful of games.
I mean, if that is ultimately like why people end up choosing Chawinga over Banda, I don't think that's illegitimate, because it is that close between them on form. Yeah. But like,
what I'll say is this: if you want me to answer who I think the MVP is, the way in which Orlando is set up does rely a lot on Barbara Banda, and they are a better team with Barbara Banda. Without Temwa Chawinga, however, Kansas City has to completely rethink what attacking even is. So many times in this game, we saw Schulte grab the ball and punt it 60 yards. 70 yards to just try to get that high line beat for Temwa Chawinga.
Almut Schulte had a key pass on one of the 3 quality chances Kansas City had.
Correct. She is the key passer.
Yeah.
And it is because Temwa Chawinga, with her raw pace. Look, I think Banda's the better player, but if you're asking me on the performances of this season, Temwa Chawinga has shown up for this Kansas City team when every other aspect of their offense hasn't been working, and still provided a viable threat for them.
It is true. I mean, during that 3-game losing streak, none of it lay at the feet of Temwa Chawinga, where every other player may have been able to take responsibility for something. Yeah.
And even if we're just going back to that last match, Kansas City shut down Barbara Banda.
Yeah.
Temwa Chawinga found a way. Like, again, would I, if I'm building a team, if you're giving me a fantasy draft, if I'm starting a new NWSL franchise and I can pick from every player in the league, I'm probably taking Banda.
Yeah.
I like that she's 2 years younger.
Yeah.
I just like her game a little bit more. But Temwa Chawinga has been the MVP this season and still could threaten that Sam Kerr goal title. She's one explosive game away.
Yeah, I really hope she does it. I really hope she does it like the next couple of games too, so we don't have to have the whole like, oh, well, she had more games to do it in conversation. But that's not...
You don't want the Roger Maris asterisk.
I do not want the Roger Maris asterisk in this particular instance. I agree that Temwa Chawinga would be my vote for MVP today, with the caveat that we do have 5 weeks left in the regular season. But here's one thing that I come back to with Chawinga. I think, like, as draibblers, as off-ball runners, as finishers, as, Chawinga and Banda, there just really isn't too much daylight between them. Where you see separation is in 2 areas. Banda is the better final ball passer. Like, she's actually generated a fair amount of expected assists for someone who, like, is such a attacking focal point. Like, yeah, Banda's like put up 0.2 expected assists per 96 minutes, which is great. But where Chawinga has not only an advantage, but like a substantial one, is her defending. And you saw that multiple times against Washington when Kansas City chose the moments to press. They could not handle Chawinga's pressing aggression. Like, her ball pressure was extraordinary. And The data backs this up. This doesn't account for this past weekend's games, although it would certainly not hurt Chawinga's numbers. But looking at net G+, the defensive components, both on ball and off the ball defending, Chawinga is putting up 0.06 defensive net G+ above positional average per 96 minutes. That is the best among all forwards this year who have played at least 500 minutes. And it's really fucking obvious when you watch her. Like, she does not quit. And it's not just the pressure from the front, it's the tracking back. It's using herself as a double team when the opposition is able to break that first line of pressure. Like, she doesn't take a play off. Like, it's wild. Given how aggressive and how energetically Kansas City plays, both when they are moving into a counterattack and given the fact that they have to do so much defending because they just don't have the ball when they are playing the way that they want to. I do not see her ever take a play off. And she wins the ball all the time. She turns those into high-value shots. She knows the positional relationship with her and Debinha and either Nichelle Prince or Vanessa DiBernardo. Like, that whole attacking unit and the way that they coordinate their pressing is so sophisticated. And also, she knows when to step out and just press on her own. When she can sense a weakness in a center back who might take a heavy touch or might look a little bit hesitant about like where the outlet ball is, Chawinga reads that and pounces.
Temwa Chawinga against Emily Sams is what you're describing.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right from last week. Yes.
Temwa Chawinga is the reason we missed on our projection about Casey.
Yeah. Tara McKeown and Andy Sullivan had no answers for her.
Also, Tara McKeown's one of the best defensive players in the league.
Yeah.
And has no answers.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't nothing. This is just like Temwa Chawinga is making Emily Sams, who on her team form got a call up to the Olympic squad. Temwa Chawinga is doing this to some of the best defenders in the league.
Yeah.
On a consistent basis. Yeah. Not that Barbara Banda isn't. We don't need to make that comparison. I am perfectly happy having both Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. I am perfectly happy. It's fine. Yeah. Bully for us. The game has gotten so much better. We were talking to a friend of the pod, Drew, last night about this, and some people we were with after the Angel City game. It's just like bully for us that we are living in a time when we get all these players in the league to improve it.
Yeah.
That said, Temwa Chawinga has been a godsend for Kansas City and has completely changed the trajectory of this team. And this game was maybe not the most devastating example of it, but just a week-by-week reminder of how her value works.
She's on track for the highest ever G+ per 96 in NWSL history. Like, and it's actually not close. Like, she could suck for the next 5 games and she'd still probably break that record.
As fans, at this point, I genuinely think we deserve, we don't deserve anything, but we deserve, if we're lucky, a third Kansas City-Orlando match in the final at California Pizza Kitchen.
You want this to be, going back to Magic and Larry, like you want that. You would love for KC Orlando to be a genuine rivalry in a way that, like, Manchester United Arsenal men was a rivalry in the 90s, the late 90s, early 2000s, where like there's no geographic relationship between these two teams, but they are the best two teams and they kind of fucking hate each other. And so you just want to see them do battle.
Yeah, Detroit, Colorado Avalanche. Like just teams that don't have any natural reason to dislike each other, who just through pure quality continue to meet each other at high levels in playoffs.
You sense that like Vegas, New York, and the WNBA is heading that way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's like there's no reason for this to be like the prime matchup, but certainly this year it has.
Boston, LA. Yeah. So I one thing I will push back on you about is that like if Temwa Chawinga wasn't on the Current, I still think that Current's attack would still be pretty damn good.
Oh, by the way, it's just why we missed by so much. It's not why we missed.
Oh, I thought you said at one point you're like, Temwa Chawinga is the reason the Kansas City Current kind of get to be what they are.
She is the reason that they're not in 6th.
I think they still might be top four. I mean, I want to point out that
no. You. By the way, you might be right. I know you're about to. I know what this is getting to, and I think we should actually break down the game a little bit here. But let's get to your favorite, Michelle Cooper, and her emergence. I know where you're going. Just tell me about it. Tell me what the other components of this attack are that you love.
Well, I mean, for one thing, Michelle Cooper's assist on the first goal.
Unbelievable.
Just filthy. Absolutely filthy. And just such a pleasure. I mean, we've talked about it. I've written about it. Like, to see the way that Cooper has transformed her game this year to be the ultimate service provider. Like, I mean, there aren't too many right wingers who have that same final ball quality beyond like Trinity Rodman. I don't think. Now, I'm not saying forwards. I'm not saying strikers or all wingers, whatever. Like, there are plenty of great left wingers, good number nines who drop deep, who know how to like service the ball. But like on that particular wing, it's like Rodman, like maybe Claire Emsley, and it's Cooper. Like that's the list. And like that opening, in those first 4 minutes, you want to talk about how Washington had to completely rethink their strategy and then kind of didn't, was they got punched in the teeth hard and fast in those first 5 minutes.
They didn't adjust from getting punched in the mouth.
You're also forgetting that Cooper makes a complete fool of Casey Kruger. You know, and that's what creates the passing lane in the first place.
That's right. And that opens things, that just opens the game right there. Mm-hmm. And Washington never really like adjust or start creating chances. They sort of shake off woozy, you know, stars flying around their heads cartoon style and go back to what they had planned on doing. And it doesn't work. And by the time that we get to the Lola Labonta goal, which is, we've been seeing this a lot this year. Mm. We saw Kelly Hubley do it. We've countless, I think if you went back and listened, countless times we've talked about defenses not stepping up to dribblers who continue to dribble further and further and further into dangerous positions and just get clean looks on goal. Is Labonta's chance a high XG chance? It isn't, except for the fact that she has all day to think about it, pick out her shot, and take
That's it. It's the time, because it's like 0.6 post shot XG. So that tells you, especially from 20 yards out, either you hit it sweet, or you have the time and the space to, as you say, take those beats to think about like where you want to put the ball and then put it there.
And not just that, in the case of Labonta's goal, to find a way to use the defender who is not stepping to you to screen your goalkeeper, to screen the opposition goalkeeper, because Kingsbury doesn't see that in time.
Yeah.
It's not a particularly hard hit shot. It's just devastatingly placed, and it is using the defender as a wall to improve the quality of your shot. Mm-hmm. It's masterful, but also it only exists because Labonta has like 17 dribbles before she takes it.
Yeah.
Because no one steps to her.
Right. Yeah.
And we've seen this time and time again. It feels like a lot of goals, particularly goals that have been scored from that range this year, have been the byproduct of defenses not stepping up. So afraid of the slip pass, so afraid of what this dribbler might do otherwise, that they have not shut down a shooting lane that emerges and becomes quite clear.
Yeah.
At that point, this game, for me, is effectively over.
Yeah.
Washington looked really dead.
Yeah, and they produce absolutely nothing. Kansas City is happy to absorb whatever minimal pressure that gets thrown their way. And then in the 69th, Chawinga pounces on, a counter.
On a counterattack, she starts.
Yeah.
It's her to Bia to Dabinia, and then she finishes the runoff after Dabinia rounds Kingsbury.
It's the most quintessentially Chawinga thing. I giggle every time I see it, where she wins the ball in her own half and then somehow ends up scoring the same possession.
That's right. She wins the ball 60 yards from goal and scores 6 yards from goal.
It's so ridiculous.
Without having had the ball between those two periods of time.
Yeah.
It's great. That said, at the half, there is an attempted adjustment that Jonathan Heraldez makes. He he rethinks what his lineup has been. He takes off Ashley Hatch. He takes off Casey Kruger, but neither of whom distinguished themselves in that first half. It was an odd, weird off game for Kruger. It was limited service for Hatch, who really struggled to find space.
Yeah.
Washington's been rotating their front line a lot, particularly since Bethune went down.
And Uli Matasar as well.
Another rotation. Yeah, Uli Matasar. Washington is they're a little ragged at this point.
That only really emerges when you're trying to figure out what you want to do with Hatch. Like when you have her essentially functioning as a 2 with Rodman, that's where they are comfortable. When she starts peeling off and having to play wider and more as a winger, or be the player to like generate a lot of the interchange, that's when she loses her effectiveness. Because Lacey Santos was doing her job. I mean, she was 8 for 10 on forward pass and dribble attempts in the attacking third. You know, Robin put in a good shift until, you know, she had a back spasm and had to get pulled, which we'll talk about it, you know. But Hatch is just always the odd player out. And sometimes it works like it did last week, and sometimes it doesn't like it did this week.
And in this case, there is a subtle shift in formation. These halftime subs do nothing whatsoever to curb Kansas City. And then we start seeing, you know, Esme Morgan, who'd been rotated out, is brought in for Butel. Kawasi, who had a frustrating game and generated very little, is taken off. And then Chawinga scores and puts the thing away. But we end up with Trinity Rodman, who probably does need a rest, having what looked to be like a pretty serious non-contact back spasm.
So this is...
You hope it's nothing.
This is something that she has dealt with for a few years now. So it isn't necessarily a one-to-one causal relationship between her minutes and the spasm itself. That being said, I mean, give the girl a fucking day off, you know? Like, hopefully she gets next week's game. She stays on the bench just as a precautionary measure. But yeah, this is something that she has dealt with at times throughout her professional career. It just looked really bad in the way that she both went down and was like convulsively sobbing in pain when they were tending to her.
It was bad. In the second half, I mean, Rodman in this game has 6 shots for less than 0.25 XG. Mm-hmm. She's taking pot shots. In the second half, Washington, she is responsible for all but one of Washington's shots. And they are from 36, 27, 29, and finally 15 before she's taken off.
Yeah. Yeah, they're grasping at straws.
The shooting locations were terrible across the board for Washington, and they weren't able to create much further when they got in. It was rough. And then Rodman goes down and the game's dead rubber.
And
and then you have a moronic last minute red card.
Two things. Lena Solano, clearly the worst of all their substitutions based on what happened.
That's right.
But also, like, how many times do you see not just like late second half stoppage time, but like at the final whistle, straight red card? I don't know if I've ever seen that. I'm sure it's happened, but it's got to be very rare.
It's rare. Like
literally the ref goes to his pocket, pulls red, and then blows the final whistle. Like no. It was the candy maraschino cherry red on top of the shit sundae that was their performance. Yep.
Which is fine. Again, like, how concerned are you for Washington?
I still think they make the semifinal. You know, if we go,
my answer is not very concerned.
If we go by Trevor's ELO model, I think this result definitely tightens up who gets to the final. You know, like according to his model, it's basically a coin flip between Washington, Gotham, and Kansas City as to who makes the final. Are all hovering like in that 43-44% probability range. And I don't think that's that feels right to me. You know, on expected goal differential, like, Kansas City, I think maybe those odds are a little bit low for Kansas City, but Trevor does include results as 20% of the weight when he determines projected results. So that I'm sure is pulling KC down a little bit. But like the XG differential spread between Washington and Gotham, at least, is just a couple of goals. So in a single, and also in a single elimination knockout, like let's say, for example, it's Washington and Gotham in the semi. That's a coin flip for me. What do you think?
There are 4 quality teams, 4 high quality teams. I expect them to be the 4 semifinalists. If Kansas City is hosting, if they have somehow managed to
get a 2 seed at least,
get the 2 seed, yeah, I think that it's clearly their advantage. The race for the jostling between 2, 3, and 4 right now is very serious.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say right now. The Current are on track to face Orlando. I don't think that's how it'll end.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's so situational. I don't see a lot of daylight between a lot of these teams.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it was a commanding and convincing performance for Kansas City. I think what it does for them is just remind people that yes, they are one of the 2 best teams in the league, and they just need to, continue with the consistency that they have found over the last couple of weeks in these final 5 games to see if they can at least nab a 2 seed, if not the Shield.
Yeah, and I think per Trevor's model, at least when I looked at it, it was Kansas City had a 29% chance of winning the thing.
The championship, yeah.
Or the championship. Orlando had 27,
That's right.
And then it was 20 and 20 for Washington.
And Gotham, yes, that is correct.
Gotham. So what that says is there's a 96% chance that one of these top 4 teams wins the league.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably about right.
Yeah, but also the spread of that.
It's pretty much a plurality once you bury beyond that. Like once you dig.
Yeah, the distribution between which team ends up being at the top of that heap among those 4 is very, very small. And
that makes all the sense in the world.
And a lot can still change over the next 5 games. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Exactly. All right. Now you want to take us out?
Yeah. Any own goals? Did we do anything dumb? Say anything dumb?
I'm sure we did.
I can't remember. Accountability is important. We have not been great about flagging our own goals recently. And I got to do a better job about just making notes, because we both have ADHD, so sometimes we just forget. So I for myself am holding myself accountable and saying I got to be better at making note of when I make an own goal on the show.
That's sometimes some really slick editing.
It does help.
Catches the own goal.
It really does help.
We record.
Yes. It does.
Abby Ursig, Orlando player,
which you'll never hear.
Yeah, you'll never hear me say that as what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for listening, guys. Remember to rate us, review us, follow us wherever you get podcasts. Tell all your friends about us, which works. We met friend of the pod, Patreon member, Discord hanger-outer Drew at Angel City game last night. They told us, I told like my friend about you guys, or no, sorry, it's the other way around. Their friend told them about the show, and then they became a huge fan of it. So word of mouth really, really works. You can get this into the hands of people who really might enjoy it. So please spread the word. Rate us 5 stars if you're going to rate us at all. Drop a review on the podcatcher that allows for such a thing. If you're not a member of our Patreon yet, it's only $6 a month. You get 4 bonus episodes every single month, and you get access to our Discord server and our semi-occasional live stream watch-alongs, which we're probably going to be doing another one of those in mid to late October. So come along and hang out with us. It is a real good time. And if you are a listener who lives in the Los Angeles area, we are going to try and do like an informal mini gathering at the Sunset Lounge on the roof of BMO Stadium after Angel City plays the Utah Royals on Sunday, October 20th. So if you are in the greater LA area and you're planning on coming to that game, please come up to the bar after the game. We'd love to hang out and say hi, take a photo, or not, whatever you want. We are happy to respect your boundaries. In the meantime, if you are a Patreon member, we will chat with you on Thursday. Otherwise, the rest of you can enjoy your week, and we will speak to you next Tuesday. Don't forget to follow us on social media at XOwnGoals or email us at expectedowngoals@gmail.com.
Sweet.
Cool. Bye.